I've trained dogs long enough to notice the small things first: posture, eye contact, the way a tail moves when it recognizes your footsteps in the driveway. So when I opened the gate that evening and the golden retriever waiting on the porch looked up at me with polite uncertainty instead of the familiar bright alertness, I knew something was wrong before I even stepped inside. "Sit," I said automatically. The dog tilted its head, not disobedience, confusion. My retriever, Atlas, had earned his championship title 2 months earlier. Years of careful work, early mornings, quiet repetition. His commands were muscle memory for both of us. I crouched down slowly. The collar was different, same breed, same color, same general size, but the eyes weren't Atlas's eyes. His were sharp, attentive, always anticipating the next instruction. These were soft, nervous. Behind me, I heard a laugh. "You noticed?" My sister-in-law leaned against the kitchen doorway like someone waiting for applause. She'd been living with us temporarily after a messy separation. For weeks she'd made small comments about Atlas, about how much time I spent training him, about how people obsessed over animals while real problems existed. I stood up. "Where is he?" She shrugged lightly. "Relax, he's with a family that'll appreciate him. I took him to a rescue event this morning. A couple adopted him immediately." Then she smiled wider. "No, your precious pup is making someone else happy." The replacement dog shifted uneasily between us. I studied her face for a moment, not angry, not panicked, proud, like she'd corrected something unfair in the world. I nodded once. "Interesting." That seemed to disappoint her. She had expected shouting, I think, maybe a dramatic argument. Instead, I walked inside and set my bag on the table. Atlas's training binder was still where I left it. Competition records, veterinary history, registration papers from the National Kennel Registry, insurance documentation tied to his performance career. People who don't train working dogs often think of them as ordinary pets. Atlas was legally registered, microchipped, insured, and contracted through a breeder agreement that required notification if ownership changed. I sat down and opened my laptop. Behind me, she lingered in the hallway. "You're not even mad." I typed an email to the Kennel Registry's missing animal contact. "Did the rescue tell you the shelter name?" I asked. "No," she said lightly. "Why?" I didn't answer. Instead, I called the veterinary clinic that implanted Atlas's microchip. They flagged the chip number as missing in their system. From there, it was a simple step to notify the National Microchip Database. Administrative work is quiet, but it moves. By the time I finished the second phone call, the replacement dog had curled up beside the kitchen chair like it had lived there forever. My sister-in-law watched me. "You're being weird about this." I finally looked up. "You rehomed a registered animal without ownership authority." Her smile faltered. "It was a rescue event." "People do that all the time, not with microchipped competition dogs." She waved a dismissive hand. "You're exaggerating." I closed the laptop. "We'll see." The house was unusually quiet that night. The shelter dog, gentle, uncertain, followed me room to room. I gave it food, water, a blanket. None of this was its fault. Late the next morning, a county vehicle stopped outside. Animal control officers don't knock aggressively. They arrive calmly, like people used to sorting out strange situations. The officer introduced himself and asked if he could scan the dog currently in the house. My sister-in-law stood stiffly by the kitchen counter while he passed the scanner over the golden retriever's shoulders. A soft beep. "Shelter intake chip," he said, reading the number. Then he checked the file on his tablet. And you reported a missing dog yesterday. Yes. He looked at me, then at her. Same breed, similar description. That usually means a swap somewhere along the chain. Her confidence began to unravel. It wasn't a swap, she said quickly. He raised a hand gently. Mom, I'm just documenting events. His tone stayed neutral, but the shift in the room was obvious. What had sounded like a personal disagreement yesterday now sounded like a report. The microchip registry traced Atlas within hours. The family who adopted him had believed he came directly from a shelter partner program. Once the officer verified the chip and registration documents, they returned him without argument, embarrassed more than anything else. When Atlas stepped out of their yard and saw me, he froze for half a second. Then his entire body lit up with recognition. No confusion this time, just certainty. Back home, the shelter dog remained for another day until the rescue organization retrieved it properly. I made sure it left with food records and a better explanation than it had arrived with. My sister-in-law kept mostly to her room. We never had a dramatic conversation about it. Some things didn't need one. That evening I took Atlas into the backyard and ran through a few quiet training commands. Sit, stay, heel, perfect as always. The house felt different now, not louder or colder, just clearer. And for the first time since she'd moved in, my sister-in-law closed the door to her room very carefully.